The 18 Strong Podcast with Jeff Pellizzaro, episode number 69.
When we're young, we basically ruin our health to gain our wealth. And then as we get older, we try to regain our health and spending our wealth. When you watch people when they're younger, they take their body for granted and they beat it up and they beat it up and they beat it up. And then all of a sudden, 40 years down the road, their body's given up on them.
Welcome to the 18 Strong Podcast, where you get direct access to the world's greatest experts on training harder, practicing smarter, and playing better golf. Now, here's your host, Jeff Pellizzaro.
Welcome back, and I want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, Happy Holidays. As a little timestamp, if you're listening to this in the future, this is right around Christmas time, 2015, and so we're right in the middle of the off-season. So I want to ask you, how is your off-season going? Are you implementing some of the things that we talk about here on the 18 Strong Podcast, or are you just listening and taking it all in, but not necessarily taking action on these things? I want to know. I want to know what you're doing with the information that you're getting from us. Is it too much? Is it too little? Are we not giving you actionable steps that you can take with you to the gym, to the course? So please let us know on social media, Twitter, Facebook, every place. Just shoot me a question, shoot me a message, and hopefully we can answer those questions and we can tailor this show to make it even better so you understand what you need to do. The purpose of 18 Strong is to help you as a golfer get better, get stronger, live a healthier life, live a healthier lifestyle, and take these principles and implement them in your daily life as well as on the course. So please let us know how we can make this as good as possible and make your game as good as possible. Now, this week on the show, I've got a great guest, Dr. Troy Van Biezen. And first of all, he continues the streak of Canadians that I've met that just seem to be awesome people. I have yet to meet a Canadian-born person that is not just a very down-to-earth, genuine person. And so, Dr. Troy, you continue to keep my expectations very high for the Canadians that I meet in the future. Now, for you listening, Dr. Troy is the chiropractor to the stars on the PGA Tour. He works with Jordan Spieth, Rickie Fowler, Zach Johnson, Jason Dufner, Ryan Palmer, several other guys that are really killing it on tour, as well as the Dallas Stars. He works with some of the Texas Rangers, and so he knows a lot about working with athletes at the highest level. He played some European hockey, grew up in Canada, so he is definitely well versed in how an athlete's body needs to work. So he gives us some experience of working with all these guys on tour, what they're doing, what he's doing, how often he's traveling, and what it looks like to be on tour with them. But then we get into some more practical things as far as talking about back pain. As a chiropractor, Dr. Van Biezen sees back pain all the time, especially with the golfers. So we kind of break it down as to, what's causing some of this back pain. What are some of the issues that you've heard of, the medical terms, and what do they really mean? And then what should you do? What are the first steps that you should take? Who should you go see? Should you see your general primary care doc? Should you go to a chiropractor or a physical therapist? So he helps us boil that down a little bit and really kind of give you some specific actions that you can take if that's something that you deal with. So if you want to get the notes for this episode, just go to 18strong.com/Troy, or you can search for Troy in the search bar and you'll find all the notes, all the links that we talk about. And of course, you can find all of our other podcast episodes, videos, and everything that we have on 18 Strong right there. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Troy Van Biezen. Today we have on the line with us Dr. Troy Van Biezen from Chirosport Specialist. Troy, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you, Jeff?
I'm great. How are things down there in Dallas?
Dallas is great. It's going to be 80 degrees today, so I did some chores outside and got caught up. We haven't had as much snow or cold yet, so I'm sure we'll get it sooner or later.
Yeah, we are having a bit of a warm spell here in St. Louis as well, and I know I was just talking to my dad about some of the folks up in like Buffalo, New York. Last year they were buried in 8 feet of snow, and this year they're out golfing today. So it looks like it's a nice day for some golf all over the place.
Yeah, they'll pay for it sooner or later.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Well, Doc, I want the audience and myself, I want you to give us a little background on you, kind of where you came from. I know you're from Canada. You played some hockey back in the day. How did you end up becoming one of the premier chiros that are working with the guys on tour? I know you work with a lot of other athletes. So give us a little background on you and chiro sports specialist.
So basically I'm originally from Calgary, Canada. Grew up in the Great White North and played college junior professional hockey. And then I ended my career over in Europe, and I guess I just got tired of the grind. I wanted to kind of move on with my life, so I went to chiropractic school here in Dallas, Texas, at Parker College. And my vision since day one is always to have the best chiropractic sport medicine, sport performance facility in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Been in practice 18 years. When I actually came to Dallas and finished school, a lot of the Dallas Stars players that I played against or with back home in Canada were still at the team. And I got connected with those guys, and then in the summertime, it was basically, who loves golf more than golfers? It's hockey players. So
True.
The hockey guys and the golfers were playing and, obviously talking about their injuries and their pain, and my name comes up. And before you know it, I'm working with a handful of PGA Tour players, and one of the players recommended me to the PGA Tour. And I actually spent 9 years on the PGA Tour medical staff. So what does that mean is, we have 2 trailers on the PGA Tour. One's a fitness trailer, one's a therapy trailer, and it goes from tournament to tournament every week. And I was the chiropractor on staff for the whole field. So you're there for about 145 guys. And so I was there from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, Monday through Saturday afternoon, and then went home. So by the end of the week, I was pretty beat up. We had a ton of guys that would come through that trailer. And the good thing for me is I got a ton of experience seeing a lot of different golfers, a lot of different dysfunctions, imbalances, tendencies, injuries, how it happens. And over the last, 13 years, I've been traveling with the PGA Tour. So the last 4 years, I pulled away from the trailer, and then I'm working exclusively with a handful of tour players for them. And then in Dallas, Fort Worth, the chiro sports specialist of Dallas, I have 2 clinics. And what I did is I copied the TPI model. So I've known Greg Rose for about 10 years, and spend tons of time with Greg over in Carlsbad. And basically my office, it's a small version of TPI in Carlsbad. I got the sport medicine side of it, the sport training side of it, hitting bay with 3D. And then we actually got a golf shop where we have a TrackMan, they do the custom fitting and all that kind of stuff. So it's a one-stop shop in Dallas. And it's, professional athletes, the circle is smaller than what most people think. It's amazing how they have the same nanny, same barbecue or hairstylist, the same dog walker, the same. And so it's a circle of trust, and once you're kind of in that circle, it just kind of feeds itself. And so then I started seeing a lot of, Dallas Cowboy players and Texas Rangers and Dallas Mavericks. And, obviously me being from Canada, I love the hockey side of it, and I've been with the Dallas Stars for a number of years. So, and that's kind of how it all started, how it all evolved. And, obviously in my Dallas office, we have a junior golf development program in my office. And a lot of young kids have come out of that. Obviously the one that's current right now is Jordan Spieth. Jordan started coming in around 14, 15, and we got a lot of good high-level juniors in our program now that have gone into college and on the web.com. And so it's pretty cool to see. It's my office is in all sports has almost become like a mentorship, meaning we have a lot of high-level professional athletes from different sports who are in there, and you got the young junior players or college players who see what they're doing behind the scenes, able to talk to them, able to converse with them, figure out their direction, and make the right decision. So it's been really cool to see that evolve kind of on its own. It wasn't my purpose at all. But the older guys, I remember Jordan, 14, 15-year-old, being mentored by, Harrison Fraser and Ryan Palmer when he was a teenager in high school. And now here you go, fast forward 7 years later, and he's the number 1 golfer in the world. So it's been pretty cool to see how that all evolved.
I think it's so neat when you get to see kids like that, in the presence of really their idols,
Yeah.
And I'm sure like you said, Jordan was there at one point looking at these guys, and we're fortunate enough to have a couple professional hockey players in our place too. And when the youngsters come in and they're able to train next to, a Dallas Stars player or a Jordan Spieth, you just see it in their eyes, and they get to see the dedication that these guys are putting in. When those guys are then kind of giving them some advice, they take that stuff to heart, and it's so neat to see. And so what kind of experience has it been to watch Jordan now transition from the kid into that role and him kind of being the mentor now?
Yeah, there's a lot of times in our office when, he's won and we're back home and we're sitting in my office on a Tuesday or Wednesday and we're just reflecting on the week when when you won the majors or what have you. And it's just weird. It's very overwhelming. It's very surreal. It's hard for him to comprehend it, hard for me to comprehend it. We knew he was special. We knew he was going to be a great player. We just didn't know it was going to happen this fast. So it's just been really cool for me. Like I said, I've been on the PGA Tour for 13 years. And with the guys I take care of on tour, we've won 10 times this year, including 3 majors and a Players Championship. So that was a pretty
Unreal.
Cool. Yeah, I think all my years put together, I don't think I've had 10 wins in all 13 years. But it makes the traveling on the road a little more tolerable. And like in any sport, when you're winning and you're successful, it feeds itself. And because of that, as you know, it opens a lot more doors for you. People that would probably never, like today with you, the podcast, people would never reach out to you. But and the guys I travel with, and Jordan Spieth, Rickie Fowler, Zach Johnson, Ryan Palmer, Jason Dufner. I mean, those are my main guys, and they're good. They're good guys off the golf course, and I really enjoy being around them. They're good family guys, and it's great to be around them. So, like you said, it's funny how Jordan Spieth was the kid being mentored, and now Jordan Spieth is actually mentoring to some of the older guys. It's a weird circle of life that's happened. But yeah, it's just, I sit back and try to reflect, and I just sit there, I'm like, holy cow, what just happened? And it's funny, the big thing going during the season was trying to get that Grand Slam.
Mm-hmm. The Van Biezen Slam, as many were referring to it online.
The Van Biezen Slam kind of took its own little world, but obviously Jason Day played incredible that week and played incredible on Sunday, and you got to give him credit. He's a great player. And the interesting thing was on, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, Jordan comes in, and he was pretty mentally, physically beat up, and that game can really beat you up. And he sat there and he looked at me and he looked straight in my eyes. He said, "Hey, I'm sorry I couldn't get that Grand Slam for you." And I looked at him. I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, I'm sorry I couldn't get that. I really wanted to get that for you. That was a really big thing for me, and I'm sorry. I'm like, dude, here's the deal. You don't need to be sorry. You're 21 years old. You have a massive career ahead of you. You're number 1 player in the world. I'm okay with it, but I appreciate you saying that. So that's Jordan Spieth in a nutshell. He's still that kid. He's still very aware of who he is and how he treats people, and I think he learned a lot of that. When he first came out, I made sure I introduced Jordan to Zach Johnson. And Jordan has really learned a lot from Zach, just being not changing who you are. And your legacy is really going to be who you're going to be off the golf course and not the golfer. And what has evolved from that, Jordan has been up to Zach's foundation event 2 years now. And now here in Dallas, Zach's foundation has just exploded, and he's able to give back to the community and help a lot of people. So that's, at 22 years old, that's pretty cool to really see that happen.
Just the few guys that you mentioned, Zach Johnson, Jason Dufner, Rickie, Ryan Palmer, all these guys, they all seem to be such good guys to us, watching from afar. And it sounds like, I've had the chance to talk to Damon Goddard. We had him on the podcast, and he said the same thing about Jordan. I got to meet Jordan in person. Couldn't have been a nicer guy. So you've got some great players, but they're all kind of spread out all over the place. So with you being in Dallas, how does that work as far as you treating them? And I know I see you traveling a lot, and you're at the different tournaments and things like that. What does your schedule look like when you're working with these guys?
Yeah, it's a hard balancing act. Obviously the clinics here in Dallas, and family at home, and then the travel schedule. So I did 32 weeks on the road this year,
wow,
which is a lot. And so I'm with those guys full time. I'm with Jordan full time, Rickie full time, all those guys full time. The good thing with Ryan, he lives here in Dallas, so it's easy to work with him. And then during the off season, like right from the time the season ended to up until Maui, What I do is I'll go see Rickie in Jupiter, and I'll spend 3-4 days. We'll go take him through an assessment, and we'll get his off-season workout program started and just get him going. Same thing with Zach. Spend some time in Sea Island. Jordan's here, so it's easy. I see Jordan 2-3 times a week in Dallas when he's home. Dufner, either I go to Auburn or Duff will come into Dallas. Duff usually comes in Dallas more because he loves the city of Dallas. He's actually going to come in here in about a week's time, and Duff knows a couple of Dallas Stars players, and he's pretty close to them. So we're going to enjoy a couple hockey games, do some work, and just kind of hang out a bit. So it takes a lot out of you, and I put a lot of miles on it. It's not for everybody. You definitely have a passion for it and love what you do. And those guys are great. They're very, very thankful and grateful that I'm able to kind of pulley for my family and business to be on the road with them.
And so it sounds like you kind of have a bit of a one-stop shop where you've got the fitness stuff, you got some 3D stuff. When these guys do go back home from the fitness side, do they have their guys that they're working with in their hometown too? Like I know Jordan, goes and works over at Amped Golf Fitness with Damon. I think Rickie does some work maybe with Joey D. Do they all have kind of their own where you collaborate with these different guys and you kind of make sure that everybody's on the same page?
Yeah, 100%. The most important thing to stress to the audience is you have to have that team concept. Everybody has to have their role. Everybody has their specialties, and you're there for one reason. You're there to be able to provide the best for that player to play at the best he can all the time. So, with Rickie, I develop their workout programs, and we do have a little bit of a medical corrective activation side of it, and then we have some of the performance side of it. Just to make sure that there's no injuries as we go along in their workouts. But yeah, all the trainers have been great. They're very open. They're very forward. I think maybe because I've been out there for 13 years, maybe there's a little bit of respect because I've had so much experience out there. Like with Rickie, he's been training more so at the Bears Club this year. Jordan's with Damon. I'm trying to think. Zach, Randy Myers at Sea Island. Randy Myers has been great. Mm-hmm. Just been great working with Zach on the road. And the biggest thing is making sure these guys stay on top of it, make sure they're accountable, and just make sure that at the beginning of the season going into Maui and Honolulu, they're not behind the eight ball. I want to make sure they're ready to go, physically ready, mentally ready. And the big thing I do too on the road, I'm really big with their nutrition. So we all have goals with those players individually. And basically I week to week, how much they eat, what's their caloric intake, what's their protein intake, what do they eat before the round, during the round, after the round. The hydration's crucial, critical. So it's kind of an all-around, I guess I'm an all-around jack of all trades when I'm on the road with the guys. And, Jordan wanted to put on about 7 pounds during the season, and we got that, and we just had to make sure how much he ate, the protein he took in daily, and Rickie's the same way, and Zach, we put 8 pounds of Zach on last year in the off season. So the cool thing is the guys love to work out, they love to stay in shape. It's a little bit of an internal competitive environment. We'll be in the gym together, and they'll see them train, and it pushes them harder. So it makes my job a little bit easier. There's some weeks with the travel and the time zone change and the different hotels, you get pretty beat up and tired, but we try to keep everybody accountable and move forward. And it's like you said, it's a process. And when the guys win, they buy into the system. It makes my job easier. So
yeah, I would imagine that there's some fun competitive things going on in the gym with the guys, and I see some of the videos of like Rickie pushing the sled and things like that. Are there any ongoing running competitions that these guys have with each other?
Well, Jordan has gotten so strong in the last couple of years. I'm just really proud of his commitment to the gym. There's times where we're on the road, I got to pump the brakes. 2 years ago in Atlanta, he just put everything in the gym the week of Atlanta. I had no gas in the tank on the golf course. And so we learned from that last year, and this year we toned everything down and made sure he had gas in the tank playing, and obviously it worked. So, the older guys, Ryan and Zach, they're in their mid to high 30s. So there's a little bit of competition trying to stay in shape. Rickie's 26 years old. So yeah, they see what they lift. They always ask what the other guy's doing, but they're all in different levels. They're all different age groups. So I got to be careful, especially with Rickie and Zach. They got small frames. I can't load it like a Jordan or a Ryan Palmer. You just can't do that. I don't. The worst thing you do is have an injury with a player while you're training, and that's not good. So And then like last week in Albany, it was great. We had an outdoor gym, and so we just wanted to go outside and have some fun and do some lateral band work and some sled work and just have something a little bit different to kind of get the guys a little invigorated and enjoy it. And last week in Albany was and the gym is phenomenal out there. If you ever get a chance, you got to check that out.
Yeah, it looked like a pretty incredible place.
Yeah.
You mentioned that obviously that, any sort of injury is, detrimental to a player, and as a professional working with them, obviously that's not a good thing for us either. But do you see what are some of the more common injuries and things that you do see with the guys on tour? And then I always want to relate this back to those that are listening, and the different things that we're all struggling with as amateur golfers, not on the professional level. But what are some of the things that you see with your tour guys?
Yeah, and it's interesting. All of those guys came to me initially for low back pain. Jordan actually came to me at the age of 14, 15. He's having a lot of left-sided low back issues. Same thing as Zach, same thing as Rickie, same thing as Ryan. So one of the things that I want the viewers to understand is, if you take a look at the golf swing, it's a very asymmetrical movement. So just by the nature of the movement that's repetitive, it's going to create muscle imbalances, it's going to create asymmetries, it's going to create a lot of what I would consider pelvic misalignment. So I'm really big on taking my guys and looking at them, making sure they're symmetrical as possible from side to side, front to back. When they start getting very, very asymmetrical, that's when it puts a lot of stress on the back. So to kind of break it down, the way I look at things, and I try to keep things really simple. There's a lot of stuff out there that you see in social media that gets you too confused and gets you too convoluted. And I always just look at, hey, human body's a human body. It's the same human body 10 years ago as it was 20 years ago. Nothing has much changed. Obviously, the athletes have gotten bigger, faster, stronger. But a big thing with me in my world is you got to look at the pelvis. You got to make sure there's no rotation of the pelvis. It's aligned. And then you got to say, okay, why is there a misalignment? Why? And typically, it's either due to a muscle imbalance from the left and right side, or a weakness from the left or right side. So then I'll go into looking at different ranges of motion. And probably the most common thing I see on the PGA Tour, junior golfers, weekend warrior guys, is three main things. If you look at the human body, you want to make sure that the mid-back or the thoracic spine has mobility. It's able to move. And that's really big with the older age group, sitting on a plane, sitting on a computer, sitting at a desk, traveling in a car. They're always in a sitting position. They really lose that mobility of the thoracic spine. So I'm really big on looking at that, looking big on symmetry. Can you turn left? Can you turn right? Is it pretty even? And then I go a little bit below, look at hip motion. How well is the hip rotating, right versus left? Is it within normal limits? And then shoulders. Look at how well the shoulders move and if you look at the body in a golf swing, the pelvis has to rotate, the hips have to rotate, the thoracic spine has to rotate, and the shoulders have to rotate. So if you can't do that naturally, and I always tell clients, if you can't do that naturally, how do you expect to do that in a golf swing that you can generate a club head speed of 90 to 100 miles an hour in under 2 seconds?
Right.
And I said, and the low back's not really made for movement. And I said, and if none of those body parts are moving, the only thing that's actually going to be moving is the low back. And once I kind of tell them that, they're kind of like a light bulb goes off. And they're like, so what do I need to do? I said, you need to get a lot of hip mobility, get those hips moving, get the mid-back moving, get the shoulders moving, and take the stress off the back, and just make sure while we're going through that the pelvis stays aligned. And that just goes in through, if you look at the older age group, a lot of golfers, a lot of older guys, they lose their flexibility. It's interesting how the older age group, and I would say 45 to 60, they're really pretty good about getting in the gym and working out and trying to keep strong, but they've lost their mobility. And then you can look at their golf swing and they got no motion at all. So I try to get them to understand that keep your strength up, but you really got to work on maintaining and improving your flexibility. The young juniors, more so females than male golfers, there's extreme mobility. They just don't have any stability at all. They don't have any motor control. So when we go through our program with our junior golfers in their office, it's really about motor movement patterns, how to, stabilize the body, the core, the hips. And then as they get older and the spine's developed and the growth plates are closed, we start getting a little bit heavier. But that's the biggest thing, I think, is just looking at making sure you're aligned, making sure the pelvis is aligned, make sure you're balanced, and then make sure those three body parts are doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, normally they're supposed to move.
Right.
And then when they lock up, all that rotary stress rotational stress goes into the lumbar spine or the low back. Well, the problem is the facet joints in the lumbar spine are orientated in the sagittal orientation. So flexion extension is great, but they're not designed for rotation. And I think that from like L1 to L5, the most rotation you get is about 12 degrees. So now all this rotation stress goes into the low back, and what happens is it leads to disc issues. And the most common thing we see on a non-functional or dysfunctional is structural. And so you'll start looking at disc issues. And a lot of rotary stress starts occurring in the low back, and that's when the discs start really wearing out and bulging or herniating.
Yeah, I think that, we often look at back pain. Many of us have been through back pain, especially as golfers, and we kind of assume like, oh, my back is bad. But to your point, it's not necessarily always the back. Sometimes it's the stuff that's around it, and your back has just been kind of carrying the load for so long, and then eventually it just has to give in. So if your trunk rotation's off, or your shoulders are off, or your hips are off, you can get away with it for a while. And as junior golfers, we tend to see that repetitive motion, and those kids are so resilient that it doesn't necessarily bother them at that time, but over the course of the years, and you get in that 45 to 60-year-old population age, and all of a sudden it's like water dripping on one spot over and over and over, and all of a sudden you've got this huge crater that has formed, and it's low back pain. And so to do some of those preventative things can make a huge difference. Can you give us a couple definitions or descriptions of, we hear of all these different types of things that are causing back pain. People talk about, oh, I slipped a disc, or I herniated my disc, or Tiger had a discectomy. Can you explain what some of these different terms are in layman's terms for us, so we have a little better understanding?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways people say, I have a, like you said, slip disc. And I think the best way to understand it is, think of a disc that's in between the vertebra of your spine, from your low back all the way into your neck. They're basically shock absorbers, and there's tough outer rings, that basically protect an inner jelly material. And if you get something, let's say you get a disc bulge, all that means is basically the jelly inside the disc has basically started to come out towards the outside, towards those rings. And what people don't understand is there's nerve fibers in those rings, and so those nerves get pretty fired up. And now, if it gets worse, what happens is you start getting into more of a hernia disc, or where the jelly material kind of starts coming out. If you kind of like a way to visualize, if you can squish a jelly donut, the jelly comes out. That's when the disc material comes outside those rings and starts getting into the spinal canal, and then that's when you start having a lot of leg pain, hip pain. But the interesting thing is, they did a study many years ago. They took 400 people, put them in an MRI, and none of them had low back pain, but 65% had disc pathology. And so it made the researchers really think on, is the disc always that pain generator? And most times it's really not. Most times it's some sort of dysfunction, like we talked about earlier, that's occurring somewhere in the body that's stressing the back, or irritating the disc. So, it's just, I would say in my office, when I see a golfer, let's say I see 100 golfers, 90 of 100 are going to be low back issues.
Wow.
And most of the cases, out of those 90, 85 are going to come in with the imbalances that I always see with a typical golfer, with the imbalances, the rotation. You clean that up, you stabilize it, you get certain joints moving, the back pain goes away, even though they have a disc bulge, And so, and then, with Tiger, you always hear the discectomy. All that is a piece of the disc has herniated. It's either, irritating the nerve root, and they go in. Tiger had a laser, so they go in with a laser and a camera, and they just basically snip it, take the pressure off the nerve, let that, where that jelly material came out, let it heal with a scar, and move on. Tiger's deal was a pretty simple surgery the very first time. He just didn't give enough time for it to heal and recover, and now he's dealing with a chronic issue. Yeah,
it seems like there's been so much talk about his return or not returning, and nobody, unless we're right there with Tiger and we know what he's doing, what he's training. I've been asked my opinion. I'm sure you've been asked your opinion 1,000 times. It's hard to say from our vantage point, but I would say that there are, just like you mentioned, there's so many times when an injury occurs or there's something that goes on, but once you get some of the surrounding structures working and moving properly and you clean up some of those things, it's not quite as debilitating as one would think. And, I know there's probably a lot of people listening to this that have arthritis in their low back, or they've been told, they've got the back of a 70-year-old man. Well, I think to your point, if you can look at an x-ray and see that somebody's got some of these issues, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have debilitating back pain. There are ways around it when you start working on some of these other things.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, and I'm glad you brought that up. Basically going through school, you learn the whole structural model. You learn the MRIs, CTs, X-rays, and you look at all the arthritides and all the things that can happen in the spine. And as I kind of came out of school in the first, like 3 to 5 years, I'd look at X-rays, and you can have somebody who's having disabling pain, but their X-rays and MRIs are clean. And then you have somebody who's got a spine of a 9-year-old, and their pain's like a 1 out of 10. So I sit there and I scratch my head, and I'm like, this makes no sense to me, what I've learned in school. So then you take a step back, say, what else, what am I missing? And that's when you start getting more into the functional side of things and kind of what we've been talking about. And I just say, if the human body has a way of moving, identify the normal movements. If there's something that's not moving abnormally, it's going to stress something in the body. And so probably the last 10 to 15 years, I've really been going down the functional side of things. And now you see that more and more in the sport medicine, the sport performance side of it, that seems to be the way to go. But they're still teaching that model in medical school and chiro school. And so I think a lot of people are getting misdiagnosed, getting medically mismanaged. I mean, I get a ton of clients that come to my office that have gone through orthopedic injection therapy, no relief. And we take them through a simple screen, figure out the dysfunctions, show them some stretches, exercises to do, and they're cleaned up. It's weird. It's just you sit there and scratch your head and say, well, when are people going to catch on to this, right? And it's actually funny. I was talking to a client of mine, came in very similar to what we were talking about right now, and struggling with the back, has arthritis, and has been going to get an injection therapy, and it's not been helping. And older guy, semi-retired, wants to play golf, hurting, can't play golf, worked his whole life to retire. And I remember 10 years ago, a client of mine said, when we're young, we basically ruin our health to gain our wealth. And then as we get older, we try to regain our health and spending our wealth. And that is so true. You watch people when they're younger, they take their body for granted. And they beat it up and they beat it up and they beat it up. And then all of a sudden, 40 years down the road, their body's given up on them. And now they're just trying to regain, spend their wealth, trying to regain their health. And so I always try to be proactive and preventative and learn. For me, being in practice 18 years, seeing the different generations that come to the office and really let them know, hey, I know you want to play golf. I know you want to play tennis. I know you want to run. But here are the things you need to do so 20 years down the road, you're able to do that and you have that quality of life. So I've learned a ton just from my patients, things to do, things not to do, and I try to give a better direction on that.
All right, so let's say I'm the golfer that has back pain.
Yep.
What's my first step? Because I think initially we think I have pain, yep, I need to go to the doctor. I need to go see my general practitioner, and he's going to tell me what to do. What suggestion would you have for the guy in my situation?
Yeah, I mean, I would just basically figure out, again, is it structural in nature, or is it, dysfunction? But I'm going to go more sort dysfunction. So I'll just basically tell you, where's the pain? Is it constant? Is it going down the leg? There's numbness, pins, needles, tingling, none of that. If it's just low back pain, I'm just going to explain to him, I would just explain to him basically that if you want to continue playing golf, the muscles that support and control your back are obviously imbalanced or weak, and we need to restore that normal motion. Look at the hips, look at the thoracic spine, make sure they're all moving. Typically what I would end up generically just telling people, do some hip flexor stretches, do some foam rolling of the hips, on the mid back, I'm saying a term that they might know, maybe like an open book or reach back, get the thoracic spine to move. Just start moving.
Would you suggest them go to their general practitioner first, or do they find kind of a movement specialist? And I know it's very situation dependent. I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but where should they go?
Yeah, I think my opinion, it's maybe a little biased. I don't think the general practitioner, the medical side of it, really understand the low back pain side of it. And so my suggestion is you need to go see somebody, a chiropractor who's very well versed in soft tissue and well versed in, like you said, in movement. And just go through a working diagnosis, get the exam, figure it out, and just start there. Now, that chiropractor might say, hey, you know what, this is this is not, I can't take care of this. Then he will refer you to whether it's an orthopedic. Typically, a general practitioner, you're going to walk in the door, they're going to take a look at you, you're going to take x-rays, they're going to say, here's some muscle relaxants, here's some painkillers, and here's an anti-inflammatory. Come back and see me in 2 weeks. Well, we all know that's just going to mask the symptoms, not fix the problem. And so we always want to try to fix the problem. And I don't know why people, when they have back pain, immediately go to a general practitioner and or an orthopedic, because that orthopedic does not want to see you unless he's doing surgery on you. And they do not understand the dysfunction model. They don't understand the soft tissue model. They just don't. They're there. If it's broken or torn, that's what they're there for, and then they have a role. So I would just tell the audience, find a good chiropractor that's, in your area, that people recommend, that maybe is very well versed in golf or very well versed in sports, good soft tissue guy, and maybe find somebody like who I have in my office, or guys like you. Make that shift from the rehab side of it to the training side of it. I just did it in my office because I wanted to have everything under one roof, so the communication and the continuity is there. So,
yeah. I would totally agree with you on everything that you just said. I think that going to the general practitioner is kind of the first thought in most people's heads, but in my experience and what we do at our place is when we find somebody that has an issue that we think needs medical attention, we've got a couple chiros, actually friend of yours, Dr. Mark Murphy, or we've got the guys at Winchester Spine and Sport, and we say, hey, go see these guys, let them check you out, let them do their evaluations, their movement screens, their functional movement stuff, and then they'll tell you if they think they can work with you or help fix what's going on, or if you need to go down a different path medically. And I think that all comes down to a trust issue of, knowing who you're going to, knowing what their reputation is. But, to have a little bit more of an open scope, open mind when you're the person that is looking at you, they can kind of look at globally, not just your low back, give you some meds and go from there.
Yeah, I think what people need to understand is, and this is what really pisses me off when I'm in the office, is I'll get people who have been spinning their wheels for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, multiple MRIs, multiple CTs, multiple x-rays, multiple doctors for different opinions. And basically they come to my door with a stack of diagnostics, and I just take those stack and I put them on the table, and they ask me, are you looking at that? I go, well, let me ask you a question. By looking at that, with all the doctors you've seen, has it helped you? Nope. So why would I look at those?
Right.
I'm going to look at you as a person and how you move. I said, I can put an x-ray or MRI up on my reader, and that's just you at that specific time and space that they took a picture. It doesn't tell me anything about you as a person, as a human body, and how you move. And they look at me and they're confused. I said, you'll understand by the end of this session what I'm talking about. Because I said, when I look, the MRI doesn't even tell me if you're alive or you're dead. It's just a picture. and then they get, like they did, like you did, they get a little bit of a smirk, and then they start understanding. They're like, okay, I'm in a different place. This guy's going to have a different approach. And I just wish people would take a different route and say, okay, let's find somebody like you or like me or Winchester Sports and Spine or Dr. Mike and say, this is where I need to start. Let's figure it out. If we can help you, perfect. Let's go down the path. If we can't, we'll refer you to guys we've worked with in the past who are great guys, great relationship, great bedside manner, understand the body, then just go that way. But for some reason, they get into that orthopedic world, and if they're not surgical, then you end up in the pain management world. And that does nothing for you.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope there.
Yeah.
All right, Doc, we've got some closing questions for you that we always wrap up with. We've had some great conversations, and you've given us a lot of info on, some of the back stuff and everything that you've done with the guys and traveling around. But I want to get to know you a little bit more. First question, are you a Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore fan?
Oh, definitely Happy Gilmore.
Nice.
I'm a hockey guy.
Yep, absolutely. I knew that was the answer. I knew it already. All right, if there was one person that you could ride in a cart with, play a round of golf with, or just carry their bag for 18 holes, past or present in the golf world, who would it be and why?
Holy cow. Past or present? Does it have to be a golfer?
Doesn't have to be a golfer. Somebody that's affiliated in the golf world, though.
Oh, gosh.
You know what? I'm going to open that up. It could be anybody. If you have somebody in mind.
If the first person that comes to mind who somewhat loves golf, involved in golf, and I've been associated with him, I can't really say it, but is President George Bush, 43. I would love to play around the golf with him and just spend 3-4 hours with him and just chat. That's
excellent.
Yep.
I've got a friend of mine who has actually played a round of golf with W, and he said that he's just an incredible guy, incredible stories. So I think that's a great choice.
Yeah.
All right. What's most exciting for you at the end of 2015, 2016? What has you most pumped up?
That I get to stay home with my family and enjoy Christmas.
Very nice. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. And then is there one last piece of advice that you have for us? And where can we find you and follow more about you and Chiro Sports Specialist?
Yeah. Like I said, if you can follow me on Twitter, Chiro Sport, DFW. We're based in Dallas, Chiro Sports Specialist, .com. And yeah, I think the game of golf is great. I think, unfortunately, the injury rate is way too high. And hopefully by people listening to this, and with your message and my message, people will be able to find people all over the country to help them and get back out on the golf course and enjoy the game.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time today, Doc. It's been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed listening to you and talking to you and getting to know you a little bit better. And I know we've been back and forth in the social media world, and I want to see you get that Biezen Slam next year, so let's bring it home.
Yeah, we'll cross our fingers. I really appreciate it, Jeff. This was great.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.
Okay, I want to thank you once again for joining me on the 18 Strong podcast. As always, you can go to 18strong.com to get more information on the show, or for this show note, or for the show notes to this episode, go to 18strong.com/Troy, and you'll get all the information that we talked about, all the links that we mentioned in the show. If you're looking for a place to be your home base for anything golf fitness related, nutrition related, mental game, we've got it all. We've got interviews with some of the top experts in the field of the golf world, the golf fitness world. So come on over to 18strong.com, browse around. We've got a ton of podcast episodes, lots of videos. We've got our YouTube channel. And as always, we love hearing from you, the audience. Reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those different platforms. We'd love to hear from you. Want to know how we can make the show better. And if you have an extra second, please feel free to go to iTunes, leave us a rating and review. It definitely helps get our message out to the world a little bit more, helps spread the word on the podcast, and definitely gives us some great feedback. So once again, don't forget, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast at www.18strong.com. And remember, train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.